Here's an article that we have in regards to this. Sad times, the big Shadow of the Erdtree Elden Ring patch is still tarnished with micro stutter. Not always that micro. So we'll read this first. Apparently, and look, this sucks. Because when Elden Ring released on PC, it was not performing very well. It apparently was fantastic for console, and it sucked on PC. I played it on PC on launch, and it sucked. It was terrible to play through a game like that with as many performance issues as it had. Tons of frame drop issues, a lot of stuttering and stuff. Reject. I actually, whenever I was playing Hogwarts, I compared it to my experience with Elden Ring. It was very similar. Very similar. Yeah. It was quite brutal. I pushed through Elden Ring and played through that entire game with all the issues, but I literally won't ever do it again. And at that point, I basically said I will not pre-order another FromSoft game. As much as I do think they're a good software developer, they have issues with releases on PC. They traditionally have. But I pre-ordered on PC. It felt bad. It was very, very apparent they developed that game for console. It was another one of those issues, just like Hogwarts Legacy, where there was so much stuff beyond beyond the performance stuff, just with so many things in that game. That's why Hogwarts Legacy was just so reminiscent of the stuff I saw with Elden Ring. I compared it the entire time I played Hogwarts till I flushed it 8 days in. I was like, can't do this again, dude. I can't play through another game that has this same kind of crap going on. I can't do it. It just felt too bad. And the thing that sucks here is, again, the release of Elden Ring on PC was brutal. It did not feel good. There was a lot of issues. And I think that for most people, the content was good enough to push through the performance issues. But I'll tell you this, I would have, no matter what, I would have had a lot of deaths in Elden Ring. But I can, without a doubt in my mind, tell you there was a good chunk of deaths that I had in that game that were absolutely attributed to the fact that the game just played like trash on PC. There was so much stutter. In a game like that, you don't want to play a game like that when it's not smooth. It just sucked, dude. It sucked so bad. And apparently, their DLC is full of it again, dude. The persistent stutter issue is elusive. Some systems won't see it at all, but Elden Ring on at least one of my testing PCs is still full of Scarlet Rot. This was one of those other issues. Was like, there were some people on PC that didn't have too many issues. There were some people that had massive amounts of issues. I was kind of in the middle. I wasn't having like a bunch of crashes or anything, but I did have constant frame drop and constant stuttering in the game, and it felt terrible. So apparently it's the same thing they had on the release of the game. If you're a long-term player of Elden Ring, you may well have been one of those PC gamers who has suffered from micro-stuttering, very brief but large drops in frame rate throughout. All kinds of solutions have been bandied around the interwebs for it, but none have truly nixed the issue. With a long-awaited expansion Shadow of the Erdtree and a massive 20-gig patch to the base game, you may have been hoping that FromSoft has done something about it, but I'm afraid you're out of luck. Elden Ring isn't a game I've been interested in playing before. I'm not keen on any Souls game, but equipped with a preview code for the DLC, including the full Elden Ring patch, I dived in, hoping to reach the point where I could start performance testing the new region. Yeah, I can hear the giggles from here. I hadn't realized just how enormous the game is or how tough the entry requirements to Shadow of the Erdtree expansion were, so I had to abandon my attempt and settle on just examining the main regions within Elden Ring to see whether there were still the same issues in the game code. Still, I should imagine there will be an awful lot of fans either wanting to start the game fresh, having not touched it for a while, or picking it up again, determined to get to the point where they might be in with a chance of accessing the lauded new DLC. But if you were hoping that FromSoft had added things like ultra widescreen support or raised the FPS limits, then you'll be disappointed, as nothing at all has changed in that respect. As many of you will know, Elden Ring is capped at 60 frames, and although one can remove this with an appropriate mod, you run the risk of being booted off FromSoft's servers for doing it, or even being served with a temporary ban. So to that end, I've tested the game as in, and I've only covered 2 settings: 1080p on low quality and 4K on max quality. The reason for that mostly concerns the fact that the frame rate cap is pretty low, so most PC gamers will be able to find a screen resolution and quality settings combination that will run the game just fine. No widescreen support, I know, dude. Yeah, wild. Overall performance hasn't been an issue for most Elden Ring players. The main complaints have always been about stuttering, especially micro stutter. This is where the performance very briefly drops by a large margin, and in the case of micro stuttering, so brief that normal benchmarks don't pick it up. In real-time gameplay, though, it makes the whole experience feel somewhat detached, as if the game is input lagging, which is terrible in a game like this, even though the frame rate is fine. So show you what I mean by how bad the stuttering is. Here's a graph of recorded frame times, how long it takes between 2 successive frame presents. For the Core i7-14700KF and the RTX 4080 Super PC, a game running at a constant 60 frames should produce a flat line of around 17 milliseconds region. You can see major spikes everywhere, some as high as 100 milliseconds, just from running around the open world. The other Intel PC and the 2 AMD systems didn't show anything as bad as this, regardless of what GPU was used. There were still spikes in the frame time, so stuttering was still present, but the highest recorded was just under 30 milliseconds, equivalent to a low of 33 frames. Now look, I'll say this. I talk about this a lot. There are certain genres of games where the better frame rate you can get at a good performance level is optimal. And this is one of those kinds of games. You're talking about a very brutal, very difficult hack and slash melee type of game, right? And it's incredibly important to, know when you need to parry or dodge roll and, respond after those kinds of things to get your attacks in, stuff like that. Whenever a game is not giving you, the option to get smooth gameplay, it's incredibly frustrating. And that's where I had such a huge issue with this game, especially. There were a lot of telltale signs this was developed for console in the first place, and menu issues and button configurations and stuff like that, and no key binding on mouse and keyboard and stuff, but the performance was atrocious for a game like this. It felt so bad. Let's get to the summary here. This is very long. I'll link it for you guys to take a look at, but I think it's fair to say that while my testing hasn't provided any conclusive evidence of FromSoft making any improvements to how well Elden Ring runs, I can at least say that the micro stuttering or mega stuttering with 14700KF system is still there, but not everyone will necessarily experience it. If you're lucky, it will run like it did on my Ryzen 9 7900 and Radeon RX 7800 XT test system, smooth as silk, with only the occasional minor stutter spoiling things. But if you're full of scarlet rot like the 14700KF system, it'll be a stop-start glitchy mess. This is the thing that you don't want to see from a developer as well. When you're talking about, obviously, development on the PC side of things is always more difficult because of the various configurations of hardware that people run. And so it's not as easy as console, where you just got basically very static hardware. There's very, very, very little, variety in what kind of hardware you're dealing with on the console side of things. So it's much easier from a developer standpoint. But if you're going to release a game on PC, do it right. Optimize it. You know what I mean? It's just so frustrating, dude, for PC gamers to be dealing with this kind of crap all the time. We see it all the time, where games release on PC, and some people's configurations will run it fine. Other people's have, moderate issues. Other people can't run a game at all. And it's not because of potato machines, okay? I get so tired of hearing that kind of bullcrap in articles and people, you know, on like forums. You probably just got a potato machine. No, it's not a potato machine thing, man. You know, it's not like people are trying to run these games on 10-year-old rigs or anything. That's not the issue. It's literally a development issue where they're just not optimizing these titles for everybody's configurations, man. Noobs upgrade to limit machines. Yeah, well, yeah. So I mean that's basically, this is I'll be honest with you. I just assumed that FromSoft had probably fixed a lot of the PC issues, but this is basically more of a look at how they have it, rather than it being a Shadow of the Erdtree issue. I don't think you caught everything that I was reading in here, but really what this was just a look back at testing the game still from release and the fact that there's still just a lot of issues in it. It's not necessarily an issue of the DLC itself. It's just the game still having a lot of these issues from release, right? So it's apparently these issues have persisted. So it's not as much of an issue of like the game got fixed for all these, you know, players that had PC issues, and now they're having these issues again on the release of the DLC. That's not what's happening. It's basically an issue of they didn't ever fix it. And this is more of a test to show people that these issues that were on release of the game are still there and persisting. And if you had these issues when you played the game in the first place, you're probably still going to have them whenever you play the DLC as well, if you're going to go back and play it, unfortunately. So while we were talking good about FromSoftware, here's a bad point about them as well, you know? Feels bad.